makes an engineer? Mathematical mind, college degree, flair for tinkering, curiosity, state license to practice the profession, scientific aptitude to solve practical problems?
Yes, all this, and the one certain spirited characteristic of the human heart, courage to accept constant challenge, the challenge to solve problems which perplex, challenge to change the world into a better place. Challenge makes an engineer.
And so does being a white male, apparently. So what's changed and what hasn't since this film was made back in 1956? I'm Dr. Suze Kundu, a nanochemist, materials engineer, science communicator and passionate advocate for diversity in STEM. In this film, we're going to be taking a look at the key areas of engineering where women have historically been underrepresented and how that's finally starting to change. We'll visit pioneering companies and charities, increasing the visibility for women and girls in STEM and motorsport. We'll team up with UCL Racing and Sekhmet Racing for the inaugural Women's Circuit Racing World Championship, a groundbreaking series that could be a game changer for gender diversity in the sport.
World WCR is underway here at Pisano. Another belting start from Maria.
As far back as the history of engineering goes, there have been women engineers. But for much of that history, their contributions have been overlooked, ignored, or erased. Arguably, the first woman engineer dates back to the 10th century in Syria. Ali Gelia crafted intricate astronomical instruments, proving that women were shaping engineering from its earliest days. Fast forward to the 18th and 19th century, where brilliant minds like Ada Lovelace and Hertha Ayrton were making groundbreaking contributions to computing and electrical engineering. Yet they still weren't given degrees or professional recognition. Moving into the early 20th century, and we meet Edith Clark, the first officially titled woman engineer in the US, yet she still had to fight for her patents and her career recognition. In the UK, Gertrude Entwistle worked for 40 years as an electrical engineer, but only because she was unmarried. Her company refused to hire married women. Women played vital engineering roles during both world wars, yet after each war those jobs were handed straight back to men. There are, of course, many more examples of brilliant and too often forgotten women engineers. But let's end with highlighting Beatrice Shilling, a British mechanical engineer from the 1930s who also just happened to be a record-breaking motorcycle racer. Unfortunately though, Beatrice faced blatant sexism in her career. She wasn't allowed to work at night by law, she was denied entry to many engineering buildings, and she was passed over for promotion simply because she was, quote, she looked like a frumpy old British housewife. Rumour has it she refused to marry her husband until he could match her motorcycle racing feats, a Brooklyn Gold Star achieved for lapping the circuit at an average speed of 100 miles per hour. Motorsport is obviously more than just racing. It's a testing ground for transport technology and advancements that benefit us all. Many of the safety features, fuel efficiency and material science that we take for granted in everyday life all started here. Think about it, anti-lock brakes, hybrid engines, battery technology, airbag suits, aerodynamics, these all came from and are being furthered by motorsports. But if the teams designing and engineering these innovations don't reflect society as a whole, we're missing out on critical perspectives. In October 1962, the Federation of International Motorcycling took the bold step to ban women from solo riding in world championships. This was the governing body's response to one Briton, Beryl Swain's hopes of competing in the World Championships. If she had been able to compete, she would have been the first woman to compete in the championships. The FIM took this decision because they felt that the potential death of a woman would be terrible publicity. And they even went as far as to say, and I quote, seeing a charming person getting hurt was unthinkable. The underrepresentation of women doesn't just exist on track. It's mirrored here in the paddock as well through the engineers and the mechanics that are supporting this sport. Now, long-term Shambles followers will know that our producer Trent Burton is a little bit obsessed with motorcycle racing, so this felt like the perfect project for Cosmic Shambles to get involved with. Cosmic Shambles have teamed up with Sekhmet Racing, Digital Science and UCL Mechanical Engineering to offer 6 engineering interns a hands-on experience of life in the paddock.
In 2024, the first ever FIM Women's Circuit Racing World Championship was launched. Set to run alongside the World Superbike Championship, the series would feature 12 races and 33 women riders fighting for the title. The Shambles and UCL interns would be getting experience with the Sekhmet team across 3 rounds and 6 races in the UK, Italy and Spain, assisting the team and Sekhmet's 3 riders, American Mallory Dobbs, and Brits Jamie Hanks-Elliot and Lissy Whitmore.
So many people have asked, do we need a specific, separate Women's World Championship? Given that there are no rules that women can't compete alongside the men, a bunch of online trolls have taken it upon themselves to decide that, well, the reason we need a women's only championship is because the women can't beat the men. I think Anna Carrasco has a few things to say about that.
Anna Carrasco then becomes the 2018 Supersport 300 World Champion. The first ever female motorcycle rider to win a World Championship.
Well, now this is the world's first women's championship.
Yep.
But you are quite a rarity even now because you are a woman leading a team and you're still pretty few and far between.
When you kind of look at the landscape of motorcycling in terms of female team owners, I'm probably one of only 2 or 3 within this paddock. You know, in BSB and national racing in the UK, there's only sort of 2 or 3 female team owners.
Wow.
MotoGP, there's only 1.
Maybe we flip it around. Maybe it's not one of few, but it's first of many.
I think that's a better way of looking at it.
We like it. It's better PR.
I have been involved with and loved bike racing forever because of this guy here. His grandmother is a friend of my mother. Her son is Wayne Gardner, who was the 1987 World MotoGP champion. So I've always been involved in bikes. And then part of the reason I love bikes is because of the tech, science, nerdy side of it. So I'd wanted to do something more. We did the Rapid Motion film last year where we did the history of speed. We put Matt Parker on a MotoGP bike. And then Maddi, who runs Sekhmet Racing, come to me. I've known Maddi and her husband Simon for years.
Trent was always the man to call. He said, let me make a phone call.
Well, let me call Helen Jersky at Mekang. I know there's a UCL racing department. There'll be, I don't know what yet, but there's something we can do.
And we ended up partnering with Digital Science, Cosmic Shambles obviously, and UCL Mechanical Engineering, who have supplied us with female interns throughout the entire season. And the feedback from my crew chiefs on our interns have been spectacular. We haven't had a bad intern come through our books. They've been a privilege to work with. I think it's so much more than mechanical engineering as well, because when you work in an environment like this, the bikes are naked half the time, the mechanics and engineers are on their back, we've all got a sore back. We're all having a whinge about making the bike go faster. This is actually a reflection of what life is like here. You're under an immense amount of pressure. Everybody feels the pressure, and although engineering is quite an art, it's an art to go faster, and it's even harder to do it when you've got 30 seconds left.
So let's meet some of the 6 brilliant UCL interns who got to be part of the team and find out what it is about engineering and motorsport that excites them.
I'm a very creative person, like naturally, and I realised I just didn't want to drop sciences and maths. I wanted to retain like the creative element and still nurture like the science side of my brain. So I was just really panicking, and my teacher said, "Oh, Bella, have you considered engineering?" And I was like, not really. And he said, "Oh, I think it ties everything together, and you love cars, you love motorsport, you love figuring out how things work, you love the design aspect, you love the science, and it's kind of like everything in one." And I went, "Oh yeah, cool." And I've ended up here.
I love that. I think you make a really good point as well, that we talk about STEM, but actually STEAM is often more appropriate because we should include the arts in that. And I do think engineering is a perfect example of a way that you can foster creativity and innovation, all in one, because they don't go separately. They must go hand in hand to create useful and adoptable solutions for society's challenges.
Yeah, I mean, initially it was my teachers who sort of sowed the seed. So it was them initially, and then when I looked more into it and I realised what I could do with it, I got quite excited. Because all I really wanted to do, as soon as I figured out that I could be creative and be scientific and all this kind of stuff as an engineer, I then just wanted to apply that to cars. And I always drew like cars and bikes and stuff when I was little. And I think I always just sort of saw it as a hobby, an interest, and I'd never really appreciated it was a career option for a long time because I'd never seen, I guess, the behind the scenes side of motorsport, like bikes and cars and who makes the things. I think UCLR has just been probably the pivotal thing that's opened loads of doors.
Yeah, so UCL Racing has a lot of different teams. So Formula Student is one part of that. We've also got an eco-marathon team, a human submarine team, a rocket and a rover, lots of different teams. And I joined the Formula Student team. So I'm going to do some design for next year's Formula Student team. And that kind of got me interested, along with the course, teaching me more about design and engineering. And so I was like, maybe like going into motorsports and doing design for motorsports might be my thing.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very interested in that, and I'm excited for the upcoming years to just learn more about it.
I think I was always fascinated by physics and maths. My dad's also an engineer, but he's always made it clear that I should do something that I really want to do. So from a young age, I really focused on finding what I like to do. And when I was studying physics and maths, it just made me make sense of everything around me, and I just wanted to do more.
My dad's also a mechanical engineer, more specifically sound and vibrations engineer. So when I was growing up, we always had a lot of old electronics that he was always tinkering with. He's a hoarder. So he keeps all of them, and he would always try to fix them or make something new out of it. So in that way, I was always exposed to it, I guess. But motorsports is a completely new thing. I've never been exposed to motorsports growing up, especially because it's not really big in Korea. So then coming into university and being exposed to UCLR, our racing team, that's how I got into motorsports.
Being part of the community has meant that I've gone to Silverstone, I've been to the Porsche Experience Centre and met wonderful people like Charlotte Phelps, who's an incredible role model and engineer. They just give women the leg up they kind of need at the moment.
We have a special club for women which has been going for a long, long time. It was first introduced in the 60s by a lady racing driver, and it's been going on from there and gaining in strength, especially now that women are coming to the forefront. And we in the club specialise in various different forms of racing. When I started racing, I think I was always looked at as a bit different. But as soon as I started beating all the boys, they soon changed their tune. Yeah, so it's much easier for girls to get into it now than it ever was in the days gone by. Yeah. Yes, it's like when I also am a member of the British Racing Drivers Club. And when I first joined, I was only allowed to become an honorary member. I could never become a full member. They didn't allow women to be full members.
Racing Pride was founded in 2019 by Richard Morris, who is a gay racing driver. And it's really just to foster inclusion of the LGBTQ community within motorsport. So we work with 5 partners who race in Formula 1, and we also have our member community. And we were at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone last week doing the same thing. Just for us, it was the first fan event we had done, which was bringing Racing Pride to motorsport fans, which for me is really important, and I think it sends a really strong message that any kind of phobia it isn't accepted, it's not wanted. We had a few comments, unfortunately, but I think for us on the fan side it sends a really strong message.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you're enjoying this film, please do like and subscribe to the Cosmic Shambles Network channel for more science content. And a special thank you to our Patreon supporters, without whom films like this and programmes like our UCL interns just wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support us on more projects like this, please head to patreon.com/Cosmic Shambles and sign up.
What drew you to applying for an internship as part of this programme?
Well, I'd never worked with bikes before, and that was something I thought was so cool. And I've always had an interest in bikes and motorbikes, so it was really a great opportunity to kind of see things for the first time and how it is to be an engineer in such a sort of high pressure environment. So I definitely wanted to have a look at how that sort of comes to be.
And you say having a look at what it's like, but really I've seen you all hands-on with the bikes getting to work. Is it what you expected, and what have you learned in this weekend so far?
Well, learned that the tyres come off a lot more than I thought they would, which is interesting, but that was so cool, just like seeing the whole process and then actually getting to sort of get involved and just following the lead. And Don is amazing, so it's just also cool.
Yeah. I have seen students that are theoretically brilliant engineers, but when it comes to the practicalities, they haven't had enough exposure to build their confidence. So do you think programs like this and initiatives like this are a great opportunity to maybe put the theory into practice?
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of people kind of miss out on doing hands-on activities and that kind of thing, just because university can be very academically focused and very, you know, it's what you're there for a university education. But I think that you learn so much just from the experiences that other people have had, and you can't always get that from a textbook.
When you're in university, it's actually quite a closed environment, and you can get caught up in thinking I know everything, and it's when you step into the real world that you're like, didn't know as much as I thought I did. And I have a degree that says I know what I'm doing, but in actual fact, I have no idea.
At university, you get to learn all about the theory and maybe how to apply it, but not always apply it. So since I was a first year, every summer I tried to find a job somewhere. I mean, in my first year it was COVID, so I literally just went to the garage down my street and I was like, can I please help? So I just tried a bunch of different things. But it's so important because then it led me to where I am now.
And I love the fact that I've talked to previous interns regularly, and they're enjoying new internships and junior roles in data engineering and mechanics. I'm like, I'm so pleased that you had this experience first. Although it's a small team and a small championship, it's such a wonderful place to start.
So I've realized I really, really like being a design engineer. So all that hands-on experience from my placement enabled me to get the job that I have now. I want to see something that I've designed do really well at a competition, and what's the next best thing is to try and work in motorsport and see something that I designed make it on track.
I would say it's about learning the content but also being able to apply it. So in all the projects we do, we kind of just learn the theory and then go apply it. I think that's what is beautiful about engineering. I thought engineering would be the best career for me because I also kind of enjoy hands-on work. I don't just like to do the theoretical stuff, I like to apply my knowledge. And I think engineering is the best place for me to do that.
Has it changed your perception of engineering and maybe the direction you might want to take your engineering career in?
Well, I was never sort of 100% sure on what sort of industry I really wanted to go into. I mean, through this internship has definitely opened my eyes a lot more to motorsports. I'd seen it around and I knew people were very passionate about it, but I'd never sort of considered that for myself. So now it's definitely an option there. I'm like, oh, I would perhaps really enjoy doing this in the future.
Engineering is shaping the future of everything, from the climate change solutions to medical devices. If we want the best innovations, we need the best minds, and that means we need more diversity in STEM.
And of course, this is across the board, not just in motorsports, which is why we headed to the Future Lab.
We're here at the Goodwood Festival of Speed Future Lab to find out about engineering innovations and the women behind them.
We're from Due Acoustics. We're an engineering company based in Great Yarmouth, and we build and develop sonar equipment. We're also supporting the Seabed 2030. So this data is being gathered for collection by loads of different people, and then they're trying to collate it to map the whole of the ocean bed by the year 2030.
It's amazing. So you rely on a bunch of engineering innovation, but you yourselves kind of scaffold so much of that future innovation as well.
We have got people that are cutting edge AI programmers. We've got cutting edge electronics design engineers. We've got those skilled people that work in the workshops and put the instruments together. In the whole population, engineering isn't heavily represented.
Yeah.
Women are underrepresented. I don't think you can do anything in isolation nowadays. You have to work as a partnership.
Collaboration is key.
It is.
This is the last place I thought I'd ever see myself. Growing up, I actually had, or still have, a math disability, dyscalculia. It's like dyslexia, but with numbers. So I remember being in math class and doing a math test and having panic attacks. And no one really knew what they were at the time, but in hindsight, that's what they were. And it was something I really struggled with. I still struggle with numbers. About a year and a half ago, I met my business partner, William, and he hired me as ghostwriter and illustrator to create a educational STEM picture book series. This is our first Ruby Rescue, and it's about a firefighting drone who's scared of fire, and she has to conquer her fear of fire. So it's a bit symbolic in terms of me conquering my fear of math, if you will. So all of our picture books in Drone City, they feature real-life drone innovations that are changing the world for the better. Obviously, firefighting drones. We have search and rescue drones, farming drones. It's a big part of what I do is we go into schools and we do STEM workshops, teaching kids how to code, engineer, and fly drones. A big part of what I leave the kids that I speak to and with these workshops is that even though they might struggle with something, there's still a place for them. I never thought there was a place in STEM or tech for me. But it turns out that artists are needed in the tech industry. There needs to be 3D designers and CAD designers. There needs to be, just look at this place. Like, it's just filled with art, even though that might not be the first thing you think of when you think of STEM and tech.
I lead our research and testing division, and the Tire Collective is a green tech startup. We're building technology to collect tire water pollution at the source as it's created. Tire pollution is actually one of the second largest microplastics pollutants in our environment, and we decided that we need something to stop that. And so we've been going for 3 years. We've run global pilots. We're on our 4th generation prototype. We're looking at doing a product launch in the next 2 years.
So tell us the sort of bigger picture of the materials challenge. And a lot of the things that we use, that we wear, that we consume, whenever there's an element of wear, there are all these teeny tiny fragments of that material coming off.
I think the interesting thing about tire, which you just hit on a little bit, is the fact that it's such an obvious source of pollution once you think about it, but no one ever considers really where that material goes. So it's actually been a really interesting challenge, like bringing people on board and helping them realize and recognize the problem. But it's usually as soon as we say it, they're like, oh yeah, of course, that material has to go somewhere. And so we've taken a multidisciplinary approach into kind of solving that. So our team has people with backgrounds in architecture, engineering, material science. My background is actually in biology. So I work a lot with our different chemistry labs to do analysis on the material we're collecting, and I kind of feed that back to our engineering team, who's formed of mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. They'll make changes, and then we'll do on-road testing and kind of repeat. So it's a really dynamic process.
You talked about collecting these microplastics, these fragments at source. How do you possibly do that?
So we discovered that tire wear, as it's produced, is actually charged from friction with the road. So we're able to take advantage of that, and we've designed an electrostatic filter which can selectively pull the tire wear out of the air. And We do a very good job of that, actually. So if you look at the material we're collecting, about 95% of it is non-exhaust emissions and 90% is tire wear. So we have extremely high purity of selection. Now we're looking at how do we incorporate that onto a vehicle. So we've been doing different pilot trials to understand the airflow underneath the tire and looking at how it can be incorporated into the vehicle itself.
Just thinking about the sustainability aspect of this, you know, we create these tires from, you know, human-made but also natural materials. You're going to all this effort to collect that material. What do you do with it then? Can we do anything with that?
That's a very good question. And yes, looking at making sure we have a circular approach is really important to us. We can't be a green tech company without making sure we're considering all aspects of what we're doing. So we do look at recycling the material we collect. We've run a couple different feasibility trials. They've actually gone very well when we're looking at incorporating that back into rubber stock. What we're finding is that if you want to recycle tires at all, full stop, what typically is done is they take the whole tire, they remove the rubber part you can recycle, and they cryogenically grind it. So that's very energy intensive. You're freezing and then you're operating these huge grinding machines. The advantage of tire wear that we collect is you can skip that grinding step. So we're already going in with lower carbon emissions, and then we're finding that our materials also equal performing at a better standard than material that is ground. And that's due to the fact that being naturally ground has irregular shape. It's kind of a fluffy material, and so it bonds really well, and so you get better material properties.
Do you think engineering is diverse enough to innovate in the way that it needs to help solve all the global challenges that we're facing, or do you think there's a way to go there?
I think there's still work to do. I think it's better than it has been. But I mean, there still doesn't seem to be fully representative, and I think there still needs to be more work on talking between the different disciplines, talking between art and science as well, and making sure you're bringing in solutions that are actually applicable to the people who will be using them. There's been a lot of great progress, but there's still more to do. Yeah, I can tell you a lot of the meetings that I'm on, I'm still only 1 or 2 women that are present, so there's more to go, but at least we have it.
Back at the track, there's no better example of the crossover between engineering and racing than rider Mallory Dobbs, a competitor in the WCR Championship with Sekhmet Racing for the 2024 season, and also, by day, an actual real-life engineer.
Yeah, so my story is cool in that it's a little different than most, and none of my family races or rides motorcycles. This was the first real, like my dad does it in cars, and so, you know, I didn't start until I was 22, and now I'm 30, and so it's definitely a little bit later in life than most, but, you know, that doesn't mean it's not feasible.
Absolutely. And you're in maybe a reasonably unique position as well, because you're also a qualified engineer. How has that kind of inspired you, and where are the sort of the similarities and differences in these two fields? How do they support you?
I went into college and I did my four-year degree in engineering, civil engineering, and got my license a couple years later. And, you know, I was doing motorcycles a little bit, you know, casually, like I said, before that or after, you know, I got out of college. But yeah, being an engineer can definitely help riders, you know, and help the way that you can communicate and things like that. And people actually ask me that a lot, if I'm very methodical and numbers-based and data-driven when I ride a motorcycle. And it's actually really funny because I'm not. I'm actually more of like a ride by feel and like more of how I'm like riding the bike than I am like, oh, I need to know all the numbers and all the data. Like I don't really dive into it the same as I do my job. So it's actually like I have 2 separate personalities. They can be very helpful, and I think there's a lot of people that like the engineering mind works a little bit better because I can communicate to like my crew chief, you know, with all the data and stuff. But yeah, I definitely am like more of a ride by feel than I am the numbers, kind of like there's nothing that I'm specific about.
But Mal isn't the only rider engineer in the paddock.
My dad has his own workshop and works on mostly bikes, and therefore I grew up with it, and then I did an apprenticeship as a vehicle technician at the AVL, and now I can work there as a technician in the prototyping of vehicles.
Does that translate to your bike riding as well? When you start to tweak the instruments, do you find parallels in that?
Yeah, sure, because I have a lot of technical knowledge and I can speak with my dad about it, and I think that helps a lot with the bike riding.
Just to get deliciously nerdy then, you are up to date on all these amazing engineering innovations. What are you most excited about in terms of the engineering innovations in superbikes and in racing more generally?
Oh yeah, motorsports. I mean, there's so many crazy things happening in motorsports right now. But the data aspect is really cool, right? So we now have full data on most motorcycles, right? We have telemetry, we have so we have throttle position, brake position sensors. So we have all these sensors on our bikes that tell us when you're at full throttle, where the RPMs are at on the motorcycle, how much of the fork travel you're using at a certain part of the corner, and how fast it comes up. Those kinds of things is when you get to sit down with your data guy, you're like, well, I'm full throttle here. And your data guy's like, well, actually, you're not full throttle and you're a liar. But it's cool to look at because you can say, oh, I thought I was doing that, but then actually I was rolling out and then rolling back in. Or, oh, the fork isn't where it wants to be, or whatever that may be. So it's not just a feedback loop anymore of the rider trying to tell the crew chief, which isn't always true. It's, you can look at the data and the squiggly lines on the computer and say, well, actually X, Y, Z. That's really cool. The superbike guys are a whole nother level. They're creating their own custom swing arms and custom triple clamps and just really changing the geometry of the bikes, trying to get as much geometry to work of where they're cornering and how they're exiting. And you look at MotoGP and they've got whole ride height suspension devices that change mid-corner versus out of the corner, right? So they come into the corner and then when they go to come out of the corner, it swats so that way you can get more direct pressure to the tire. It's insane. Those are the kinds of things that that's why we see so much innovation and how all these track records are getting broken and people are going faster and faster because we just keep making these motorcycles better and better and better. Yeah, and there's a lot of different programs where you can build a motorcycle in this program and say, well, I'm going to change, the rear ride height by 5 millimeters, and then see what it does to the chassis and how it operates. So there is a lot of programs like that now too, where they can kind of modify and make changes before they even do it on a motorcycle.
A lot of riders are sort of more mechanically minded than other riders. I don't consider myself very mechanically minded. I try my best to understand, but sometimes it's just a bit whoa, because I didn't get exposed to all the mechanic side of it for very long.
See, I find this really interesting because I've seen you in the paddock chatting to the engineers and you are all speaking the same language. And I wonder whether there is this aspect of exposing people to engineering differently, because I think there are so many people that probably would have loved to do engineering but just don't know it because they don't know what it's about, or their experiences have been a little bit different to what they would like.
There's so many different aspects of engineering. I mean, one of my friends has gone to university to do chemical engineering.
The best.
Which is oh my God, I definitely think that being a rider yourself, you have your own sector of engineering, of the way that you understand it. I mean, some of it's the same as how a mechanic will do it, but I find it really hard to get a grasp with is suspension. There's so many different things like rebound, compression, preload. There's so many things to sort of pick out there, because if you change one thing, that changes something else, and that changes something else, and then if you try and rectify it and reel it right back, it's all messy. It goes all messy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it is definitely its own sort of sector of engineering. Only sort of a rider will get it, because you're all the learning styles are different.
I always say I just ride. I just get on it and ride it. It does help knowing. So I've sort of been taught the ways of suspension and stuff, which when you know sort of the ins and outs of suspension, when you're riding and you've got that in your head, you get a sort of better connection with your crew chief and stuff, and you know what needs to happen for it to feel better. So I've sort of taught myself a bit about the bike, whereas before I was a bit much I'll just get on it and ride it. But sort of when you sort of get a bit faster, it does help to know a bit about the bike itself. But obviously I don't know as much as my crew chief and stuff, but yeah, I know where the engine is and stuff, and that's about it.
You know the stock, you know.
That's it, yeah. That's it.
I think you definitely know a lot more than that.
What's interesting about this is, with the exception of a handful of people like Remy Gardner, a lot of the male riders' engineering and mechanical knowledge is very similar to what Jamie describes. And yet we don't hear blanket statements like, what do men know about mechanical stuff, in the same way those kinds of criticisms are levelled at the women riders.
Definitely I see a lot of similarities in how I'm treated, what experiences I've had in both engineering and motorsports, right? It's very much still like we're 2024 and you know, it's very much still like, oh, a woman doesn't belong here, or oh, a woman isn't supposed to do that, or oh, it's weird, you know, it's outside the norm. And you still get a little bit of that, and like I talk about it a little bit in engineering, especially, you know, like contractors are mostly like the older generation people, you know, most of the time contractors are a little bit older, and I walk out to a job site and automatically get judged from the get-go, you know, and I experience a lot even in engineering of the having to prove myself to a lot of people, whereas like the same person equal to as a male doesn't have to do that, you know, and that still happens. And I didn't realize how bad it was because I've just kind of, I normally brush it off my shoulders a lot, you know, you try to just like, that's how we make it here, right? We have tough skin and we say it's all fine, like it's gonna be okay. You're like, haha, your terrible sexist joke wasn't that funny, you know, like that still happens. And so I try not to internalize that too much, and in motorsports it's similar, you know, it's definitely like people already have a preconceived notion about how women ride or how women race or how their abilities, like, oh, you don't, women, like I literally had someone at a national event on another team, like a crew for another team, say, women don't ride motorcycles. Like he thought it was hilarious, and he said it, and I don't know the guy, I've never met him, he didn't introduce himself, he didn't say it was, you know, oh, I'm just kidding, like he just said it and thought it'd be funny, and I was like, well, it's not really that funny, you know, and stuff like that still happens. I mean, that was last week.
You have historically competed in unisex categories with everybody else. How has that felt for you? Have you felt welcomed into the sport? Do you feel that you have a big weight to carry to represent women?
Well, I never thought about I'm reference or I'm the only in the starting grid, for example. Just I enjoyed my sport. I try to win, to do all good, not all the race, but for sure it's difficult. But I enjoy. I never thought. Just I started thinking about that when the father or the people say you are the only. So you start to thinking, and I say, okay, I'm the female rider with more points on MotoGP with Moto E also. But now I'm for sure. I meet some rider more aggressive than normal.
And so it's very, very similar. And I don't know why I picked two things where I get to experience that, because now it's, you know, in basically my entire life is kind of, and it's hard because people describe it as like, oh, you have a chip on your shoulder. You think that it's, you know, blah, 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 blah. It must be so easy to be a woman. It must be nice to get more sponsors. It must be nice to, I mean, I had someone I dated tell me that once, you know, it must be nice to be a girl because you get this. That happened. That was real. And, you know, it's hard not to have a chip on your shoulder then at that point, where it's like, you know, I worked this hard and no one sees it behind the scenes. And I have to work 10 times as hard to be taken just as seriously as a man in the same things. So, you know, it's a big deal. And, you know, as a woman, it's like, I don't flaunt it. I'm not like walking around going, I'm a woman, please respect me. You know, it should just be there. And, you know, in 2024, I figured we'd be here, you know, but we're not. And, you know, I try to let it roll off my back, but sometimes it's hard not to internalize. Maybe I'm not capable, right?
Or anything a bit worse. Because I was like pretty wide on the exit. So I was like, all right, well, let's go. And we have all the exit. So I used it, and then it just like,
About a decade ago, the IET in the United Kingdom ran a campaign saying that only 9% of engineers were women. Their tagline was 9% is not enough.
We've had such a long period of time where women have been so actively disadvantaged that we kind of need that extra help just to get to a decent level, and then we'll be fully self-sufficient and hopefully, you know, just as respected as anyone else in any sort of paddock or area.
In the UK today, only 16.5% of engineers are women, with the most underrepresented fields being mechanical, automotive and aerospace engineering. The challenge is even greater in motorsports, where fewer than 3% of engineers are women. While the percentage of women in engineering has grown from 10.5% in 2010, retention remains a major issue. The pattern is reflected globally. In Nordic countries, they lead with about 25 to 30%, thanks to strong equality policies, while Germany, Italy and Spain sit closer to 17 to 22%. The US has remained stagnant at around 11 to 15%. Despite progress, systemic barriers continue to limit women's full participation and advancement in engineering. And as we sit here in 2025, it's difficult to imagine that inclusion and equality are high on the agenda for the current US government. They've got more important things to focus on, like blaming trans people and immigrants for hurricanes.
I mean, I think pace it's slow, but it's still accelerating, you know. It's definitely improving. Even from when I first started university, the numbers of girls on the course was very low. Whereas now the cohorts coming in the years lower than me, there's a lot more girls, which is fantastic. And you know, in my Formula student team, I used to be the only girl for a while, and now we've got 11 of us, which feels like massive. It's definitely improving, and also I think the aptitudes are improving as well. Even when I first did work experience, I had people always say, "Oh, are you trying to do like media? Are you doing?" And I was like, "No, that's all cool and everything, but no, I do want to be an engineer." And I don't tend to get those questions so much anymore, which is nice.
Yeah, it's so funny. You kind of hit an age where everything makes sense. You stop questioning who you are as a human being. You stop questioning if you should like something or shouldn't. You stop worrying about who you should impress and why. For me personally, I think as a genuinely, it's not something I like to bring up often because it's never been a barrier to me. I've never viewed it that way. But I think being a woman comes with its trials and tribulations. I think being someone's wife or being identified as someone's wife can be quite difficult at the best of times. I know that it has an impact on my job now.
Being in motorsports, you don't see a lot of female figures, but seeing a category solely dedicated to female drivers and giving them a chance to shine, I thought that was incredibly cool.
In all the stats, it sort of seems to show that mechanical engineering has still quite a gender imbalance, that we have a real underrepresentation of women even in Mech Eng.
100%. I think it always comes with some sort of imposter syndrome, because especially in our degree, like you said, in Mech Eng, I think the ratio is more like 30-70, 30 women, 70 men, even 20-80. So I do feel a bit underrepresented, but yeah, so I'm still trying to learn a way to navigate through this problem, but I'm just trying to trust myself, trust my judgments, try not to be intimidated and just have confidence in what I'm saying. So it's really that first stage of coming in that's intimidating, but once you get in, I think it's a lot more of an encouraging environment than you think it is.
Things have changed a bit. So when we're dealing with things like underrepresentation in both a profession like motorsports and in the subjects that feed into it, we do have some challenges that persist, particularly in the sorts of archaic tropes that can be associated with days like this. It's a great thing to have a women's world championship, but there are other things that need to be addressed. And I think we really need to question the value of having some of those persistent challenges and whether they're still adding value to this endeavour or whether they're actually setting a sort of unrealistic example of what this could be. I wonder as well, you know, having spoken to you about your family's history in racing, having spoken to some of the other riders here as well, and lots of their role models have had to be men because it was predominantly men that were, you know, in all the headlines in this sport.
That's it.
There wasn't much visibility for women at all, but men have a real role to play
Definitely.
in mentoring women too.
Yeah,
100. Have you felt that?
100%. I think you've got the men that have been doing it for ages and that are just really fast to look up to. I do think that they play an important role in making the women faster as well. And especially for me, I think like Women's Championship, it's amazing. For me, like racing at home to begin with and racing against men has made me a better rider, and sort of learning off the men a bit, the ones at the front and stuff, has actually made me like good enough to come here, I think. So they do play a big role, I do think that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They're not lifting the ladder up behind them.
No,
They're building
that's it,
a whole generation.
To ride against the likes of Anna Carrasco and Maria Herrera that have been doing it years at the top level, And as a professional sportsman, when you kind of compete against the very, very best in the world, you can't not improve. And the improvement level that those two ladies had compared to the national riders, and the lack of experience that people like Lissy, Whitmore had compared, they're going to need help. And I could see that, and I was at her side just trying to give her some tips on how to approach the racing, because it's a nerve-wracking environment to be travelling the world. It's not just the riding, you know. Travelling outside the UK, in a foreign country, you don't speak the language, the food's different, you name it, the culture's different. The whole experience is very, very consuming, and it's then very difficult to just focus on what's important. And that's where the experience of myself and other professionals can just delete everything that you shouldn't be thinking about and what you should be thinking about, and hopefully I give a little bit of that to Lissy.
There's this old saying, you know, you can't be what you can't see. So if you see people doing it, it makes a huge difference. But I imagine when you were coming up in the ranks, role models that looked like you or people that you could relate to were few and far between.
Jenny Timmuth was the big one for me growing up. Obviously Maria and Anna, but Jenny, being an English lady and doing what she did, she's the fastest woman around the TT circuit.
What has been really exciting is we've seen the number of grown-ups as well as kids coming and basically queuing up outside the box to get a photo with you, to get an autograph. How important is that for you? And what can we do to kind of foster more of that excitement and interest in a range of different role models for kids?
Yeah, I love that aspect. You know, I've always, like, ever since I started racing at professional level, when I did my first Moto America round and I saw the fans and all the kids, and like some little girl named Mallory, had the same name as me and everything, ran up to me at a race, Mallory! And I'd never met her before, and hugged me at the knees. You know, she was like this big. And, you know, those moments just make everything kind of worthwhile. Like, yes, I'm a racer, and yes, I want to do well, but also seeing the moment where the kids get really excited about seeing someone as a person and seeing that they're real, and like actually seeing them as like, yeah, someone to look up to, as like a role model, like that brings me purpose. Like that gives me something to like really like just keep pushing and keep doing what I'm doing, and try to tell, like, share my story with other people. You know, all the trials and tribulations, like all of that matters to people. You know, I'm just a human, I'm just a regular person, you know, doing the same thing as some other people, and then just adding some racing into it, you know.
Paramount for me is little kids, because they're looking at you going, oh my God, that's a little girl, that's a, you know, do you know what I mean? Like, whenever I was racing at the clubs or when I was at BSB, because I'm quite physically small, a lot of people think I'm younger than I am. So yeah, people are like, oh, look at that little girl doing that, and it's just like, oh yeah, okay, that's what I really like about that, is you're inspiring younger people to come and do it. Because at the end of the day, if you're not inspiring people to come and do it, it will just stop. But yeah, they're very important to me, and I think everybody feels the same, especially with little girls coming and seeing us in our paddock. Like, that's very important to all of us, is that we see more women coming through, because I know a lot of women that have sort of said, oh, I could never do that. And I was like, you can. You just don't, you're just not thinking you can for whatever reason. Like, I'm doing it, Mal's doing it, everybody else is doing it, so you can do it.
And people that aren't necessarily into motorcycles maybe don't quite get into it. And so it's a matter of like, I mean, I talk to people all the time, like locally, you know, in my own city, and there's a racetrack, like a national racetrack 30 minutes from my house.
Wow.
And there's people that even live in the same city as the racetrack, and they don't even know about either the racetrack or that there's racing or national stuff. Like, because people would be like, oh, hey, I'm not doing anything this weekend. Let me pay, you know, $30 to get into a race and watch people go fast, you know? People love it, you know?
Yeah. I never saw myself getting as into this as I did. And I look back now at a couple of hours ago, and all of us are in the pit lane box, losing our minds on that last race, because it was still all to play for. It was brilliant.
Mal, Lissy and all the riders are doing a great job inspiring people from the track. But if we're going to bring more women into engineering, and motorsport engineering in particular, that awareness, encouragement and experience needs to start in schools. And that's where places like the Green Power Education Trust have really come to the fore. Green Power inspire young people around the world to excel in STEM through a unique challenge: to design, build and race an electric car. We went to meet up with the Green Power team and some of the students at one of their race meets in a wet and windy Chichester.
You know, with Green Power, actually, we provide an opportunity that is practical and real, and young people can then kind of learn the skills that they wouldn't necessarily do so in the classroom. I mean, it even goes to the point where, you know, you might find the maths lesson quite unengaging, but you come here and you're doing maths. You know, or you're, you know, learning about the impact of a car, you know, if it's going at a certain speed, or you're learning about how, you know, by changing the wheel bearings in your car, how it reduces friction, you know. But that's all science, and that's all, you know, maths and engineering, but young people might not realise that, and so they're able to gain those skills. I think by going around and talking to the young people, you see the impact. One example that springs to mind that I talk about a lot is our chairwoman, who started in the programme when she was at school. Now she's working in the motor industry as an aerodynamicist, and she's also the chair of our board. And I think that, you know, that maybe the seed that's been planted has enabled her on her journey and her pathway in her career that potentially she might not have had if she hadn't been, you know, taking part in this activity.
I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a full-time job designing equipment for the semiconductor industry. I make equipment that cleans up some of the greenhouse gases to try and make the semiconductor industry better for the world. I know at work I'm always looking for new engineers to join my team and young people. So if I want the right people to come through to work for me, I need to help them get on that ladder so that they come to me later in life. So the school that we run Green Power through is a normal state community school, boys and girls. And the girls often don't feel they can get involved because it's not for them. But they don't know that until they come. So the fact that I am there and encouraging, and sometimes girls think a little bit differently about how they approach things.
It's so important to have a diverse background of input from lots of different people, from lots of backgrounds, lots of careers, lots of different ethnicities, because actually we bring, you know, different things, don't we? Different strengths and different ideas and different experiences.
I've learned through interacting with so many different cultures, being Sri Lankan, Italian and the British cultures. There's so many different minds, there's so many different cultural differences that has made me grow as a woman, as a person, as a human. You kind of need so many different opinions, so many different inputs, just because that's what creates innovation.
You know, if you've just got the same group of people with the same experiences and same background, they're only going to think in the same way and have the same, you know, ideas. And I think when you've got a variety of experiences and a variety of understanding and perspective, then actually that brings much better solutions.
There's a real agility to Green Power and the way that you are just so dynamic in how you're responding to the challenges, both of young people and engineering and getting them involved in engineering and raising aspirations, but also with some of the tech that you're using. It's very telling that right now there is a race going on, and compared to many of the other places we've been on location, we're not worrying about the noise. And that's because of the fact that these cars are battery powered, which is a very future-facing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our race events, we have supplementary activities going on. So things like the Green Power Award and Sustainability Award as well. And they're to help young people start thinking a bit more about the impact that motorsport and engineering has on the environment. So we run those alongside the racing, so it's not just about the racing.
We've got girls who have taken on different responsibilities, so some of them will be more for building and designing the cars. We've got a girl in charge of batteries, and she's responsible for deciding how we're going to look after them, which batteries we're going to use. And what we've learned from today being quite a cold day is very different from races in the summer when weather is much warmer.
You know, it is part of the core focus of what we do is around sustainability.
10 years ago, when I started doing Green Power, electric cars were not anywhere near as common as they are now. Students today, they're going to be doing technology jobs of the future. Materials are going to be really important. But also recycling and looking after things, and skills that they're learning now, especially with electric cars, are really going to take them where they need to be in the future. And things change as well. But remember, green power is it's the full package. It's not necessarily electric cars, it's problem solving. Yeah. So if you can learn to problem solve with green power and work in a team and all those lovely things, that will set you up well for whatever technology throws us at in the future.
Yeah. The things that they learn every single time they come to a race day, and then they take that back to school, they're like, well, this didn't quite work, and what can we do to make this better, and how are we going to improve for next time? And they're constantly working on the next race and how they're going to get this better. So we've got some brand new little year 9s here today who are shadowing year 12s and learning what to do and how to work the radios, and what do we do when the telemetry breaks down, which is what happened today, and how can we still get the data that we need, and understanding how to work their way around problems. We now have a car that has pressure taps on the floor to measure the pressure as it's going round. It has a pitot tube on the front that measures the air pressure, the wind resistance, which way the wind's even blowing. It beams all that data back to our paddock. I've got a team of boys over there who have a big case with all the telemetry inside it. They're mapping the car as it goes around with the exact real-time speed, real-time yaw, to see how it's going around corners. Is it taking the right line? They are tracking how well the motor is working, how efficient it's being, how good the batteries are. Can they make the batteries work harder, so we can actually turn the car up or turn the car down live within? Do we have to do this? No. Like we say when we come and we do the engineering prize, the judges kind of go, oh my god, do you just enable the crazy? And I just go, yeah we do, it's okay. I have bright kids, they like to be challenged.
As a woman in design tech and engineering, if you had had an initiative like this when you were younger, what difference would it have made to you?
Probably huge. I remember when I was thinking about getting into this, I was the only girl in my class at secondary school. There were 13 other boys and there was me. And they kind of went, ooh, somebody who's into engineering. And they sent me on, it was called WISE back then, Women into Science and Engineering, and I got sent off on all these courses. And it was fine. I didn't really like it. It wasn't exciting. I was stuck in a stuffy classroom in university. This is exciting. This is real world application, and I think it motivates so many kids to go, oh my god, this is my thing. And the girls come up for their first thing and they're like, oh, I don't know how to use a spanner. And we're like, well, how many times have you used a spanner? And they go, well, never. Like, so it's your first time, so it's fine. So let's learn how to use it, and then now you know how to use it, now let's learn something else. And by the end of that process, they were feeling so much more confidence. And when you have that confidence, then you start to have fun, and you start to experiment, and you start to go, ooh, this could be me, this could be my thing. And I think as a teenager, especially as a woman, finding your thing is so important.
That about 36% of our participants are female, and how can we increase that? I think one of the things is as well that what we try and encourage the schools to understand is that this isn't a boys only activity. A story is that I visited a school, and unfortunately unconscious bias had automatically made them think, oh yeah, this is a great way of supporting our young men who are having struggles in school, but actually, you know, having a quick conversation, it's like, oh yeah, and we, you know, our chairwoman, you know, she took part in the program. Oh yeah, I didn't think about, you know, our girls who also would benefit from this. I think it's like changing that narrative, be what you can see, and I think trying to change that and have more females taking part will help the balance. One of the things that could potentially be a barrier for a lot of young women is the fact that they come through this and then the opportunities aren't there for them to go into, and I think that's where working with, you know, manufacturers and industry leaders and companies is really important.
I think it's really good for the girls to experience something new and something that has been seen as quite a male-dominated domain, and realise that they're just as good and they can do exactly the same things, and quite often they'll build things with a lot more care.
Do you find that the girls that take part in this bring back some of their knowledge and their experience and their excitement to the other girls that maybe aren't taking part?
Yeah, and they also go around and talk to the other teams, they interact with them, they look at the cars, they'll ask questions, what are they made from, why does yours go so fast, what can we do to improve ours? So, and they come back all fired up and ready to say, we need to do this, we need to do that, and think about where we're going next.
I've been here for like a few months, I would say 5 months if I can count, and it's been a fantastic journey. I've been a driver as today.
Oh my gosh. Have you had any of this kind of hands-on experience of engineering, science and technology before?
No, I came to the Green Power Club not knowing anything about it, and now I know most of it.
Has it really maybe opened your eyes to careers in engineering? Has it inspired you to maybe consider a career in engineering?
Yes, it 100% did inspire me to look at more careers. Not just the careers that particularly said like to go as a girl, but the careers that are actually much more fun for me. Many, and they're like more manly, but they're much more fun and fantastic.
You are straight out of a car,
Yeah.
you are middle of the race here,
Yeah.
but you've done a pit stop, you've swapped out.
Yeah.
You are driving one of the cars for the St Swithin's teams, is that correct? Tell me about what you're doing here today.
So I've driven first in both of the races, so you have to make sure that you know what you're doing because it's quite nerve-wracking actually when you're starting. It's not a familiar position for some people, and just full throttle the whole time, no braking unless you absolutely have to. But yeah, driving and building cars is just really, really fun, and it brings so many new skills. Like I can enhance my tech at school as well as doing it for the club, so it's a really great experience.
At Shambles, we've teamed up with UCL Racing, but they are far from the only university getting involved with racing and doing so with an eye on the future.
The solar car team is a student-led team. We design, build and race solar cars. Right now we've got a team of 20. We've come back from Australia with a very successful run, coming 11th place out of 50 teams. Set a British record finishing the first time in 6 days, so very impressed with that. So I'm an electrical engineer. I studied general engineering at Durham for 2 years and then specialised in electrical in my 3rd and 4th year. So that means I was part of the drive train of the car, so I designed the drive control system, essentially how the driver inputs things like acceleration, braking, current and cruising limit, and how that then converts to the motor controller and that car, gets going as desired. So yeah, it's really, really rewarding. I would say, as a woman though, it's quite hard going into a team of male-dominated sometimes. But I think it's really empowering to be in that position and then see your team kind of grow towards you. They know that you're doing a really good job, and I think it's important for you to trust in yourself. And I think that's what inspires more women to join the team. So I'm quite proud to say that we have loads more women joining the team now, and it makes me feel really, really good to have them joining the team as well. So yeah. I think taking that first step is really hard, but once you've taken that step, every step gets easier to take. So yeah, I think that's really important to do.
Sort of a demonstration of the scientific method there, really, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Your experience very much reflects how these cars have been created, are constantly being iteratively shaped to be even better, even faster, even more efficient.
I think what's good about our cars and what's special about them is that we have such low aerodynamic drag. The drag coefficient is about 0.086, which is super, super low. It's equivalent to a conventional car wing mirror. So think of a road car, and our drag is the same as one wing mirror. So I think it's a big thanks to our aero team who designed the cars with such strive to get the aero perfect. And yeah, we do have batteries, so it's not like a normal electric car. We have to charge it all the time. The solar does charge it for you.
So what aspects of new technology have really enabled your field of research to innovate faster?
Okay, I think one of the big things that we learn a lot from is our motor. So I think in industry right now, axial flux motors are not much known about at all. So they're a very big area of research at the moment. And the fact that solar cars use the rear in-wheel axle motors is massive for industry. We get to learn loads, and so does industry learn a lot from us. Also, the solar panels, they have micro-pyramid coating on them. They cost about £25,000, and that's a massive innovation project. So Oxford PV are doing solar research on those kind of cells, and it's like they like to partner with solar teams to get their research. And so I think it's really important to work with industry as well. So our innovation lets industry make better decisions, and we also get to do better innovation. So I think it's definitely a two-way link, but I think that's what's good about it. And the fact that we can do that as students is incredibly special.
The first ever Women's Circuit Racing World Championship isn't just a sporting event. It's a movement, a showcase of talent, resilience and innovation. And even beyond the track, the data is clear. Diverse teams perform better. They innovate faster and they develop solutions that benefit everyone. Yet in motorsports and mechanical engineering, we're still seeing a huge gender gap.
Most sports have been male driven, haven't they? When it comes to all elite sports, like we're saying with football, rugby, cricket, tennis, you name it, the men have had a kind of like the focus on them with all the exposure on television and tabloid newspapers. And you know, it's taken a while for all of these sports to accept females in them and also to have their own kind of class to them. And I think motorcycling has been a little bit late on coming to the party with that. I think it's because Ana Carrasco and Maria Herrera were so competitive with men, we didn't find it necessary to have a separate championship. But I think over the last couple of years we've realised that it does need to be, and I'm really, really pleased. And I think men just need to separate the comparison now. The Women's World Championship needs to be the MotoGP of women's motorcycle racing. If you win that, you're the world's best. The ultimate goal is to be the very best in the world, and now they've got that chance.
On me in the past, I didn't believe that because I like to ride with men. I like to be all como the best, no? If the man is the best, so I have to ride with them. But for sure, it's a good achievement for all the women. We have more visibility, we have more opportunity to show our potential, and the people say, "Oh, Maria, you are riding well." In the past also. But in the TV, we don't have this visibility, no? But right now, I'm very grateful to all the people make this possible, because it's the beginning of a great championship.
I'm so proud that we've come this way after a very long time. You know, getting that exposure of women in motorsport, specifically with motorcycle racing and everything. I'm just so happy to be here, you know, get this experience firsthand. I never thought I would, you know, be interested in motorcycle racing, but being here, I'm so interested, so intrigued. It really got me captured into this industry. Yeah, it's really exciting.
As we've seen, the underrepresentation of women is evident across much of engineering. So why are we focusing on this particular world of fossil fuel burning, toxic masculinity? Well, the answer is because this particular realm of engineering remains vastly underrepresented, even with the general underrepresentation in engineering. A major survey in 2022 of MotoGP, the premier class of motorcycle racing, produced data showing MotoGP is slowly attracting new female fans, 1/3 of whom have been following the sport for less than 5 years, and skewed younger than male respondents. 56% of female fans were aged 16 to 34, compared to 40% for male fans. Still, over 2/3 of those surveyed said that the sport is not doing enough to welcome new fans. The truth is, change does not occur without the input of the entire cross-section of society. Motorsport is not going away. To paraphrase the journalist David Emmett, the first motorcycle race almost certainly took place the same day that someone built the second ever motorcycle. As we discussed in Shambles' film Rapid Motion, the desire to race and go fast is an inherent part of being human, and over 50% of the population is female. The thrill-seeking desire is not exclusively male. And so with that in mind, it should be our aim to make sure it's something available to all, and that together we can make it better, smarter, safer, and ultimately more sustainable. And a proven way towards better fuel economy, biofuels, electric vehicles on track and more importantly off track is through motorsport. And a proven way towards progress is by having all minds working together. And so there is obvious value in creating a more welcoming environment for anyone that wants to take part. Our UCL students got to experience a season in the paddock on one of the hardest fought motorcycle championships of 2024. A championship that wasn't decided until the very last corner of the very last lap of the very last race. For Sekhmet Racing's debut season, it was fair to say it was a challenging one, but with lots of positives to take away for its riders as they move into the 2025 season.
Honestly, the season has been really tough.
Oh.
Fuck motorcycles. Fuck everything about them. The hardest season of my race career, and we ended it on a really positive note with the last however many top 10 finishes. So
it's going to be in 7th place Madrigal from Ongaro, Mallory, Dobbs, and Emily Bondi completing your top 10. What a race!
Yeah, I mean it's had its ups and downs, but to end it on a positive note and to look forward to the future is really exciting. I'm working full time still as a civil engineer, so it's there's a lot of things that moving parts, and then you make a women's championship and it's good, but you also pick a lot of girls from different walks of life and different experience levels, and you put them all together and you kind of have some varying level of difficulty. She did not give up. Like, you'd pass her, and sometimes when you show them a wheel, I think I'm notorious for this, when somebody shows you a wheel, you're like, and then I showed her a wheel and she was out of my vision, out of it, and I went into turn 11 and she was around the outside, and I was like, well, okay, very fine. That's what we do then. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, we got taken out 3 times this season.
But that's coming from so far back there for Lucy.
Lucy Michelle,
That was not my fault this time. Oh, somebody took me out. Clean me right out, last lap.
I love you so much, but also I am so pissed at you. So fucking pissed. You took me out. She's honest about it, and then had our own, crashes here and there. And, you learn as you go and you're trying to push, and that kind of was just what happens. But big learning curve with everything, with the travel and the series and everything else. So
I think everything this season has been challenging, and believe it or not, I didn't not know that. I knew everything I was going to do this year was going to be a challenge. Did I know it was going to be a challenge to the degree that it has been? No. However, I think the highlight for me is I've done what I said I would do, and no one can take that away from me. No one can take that away from our team. I think I've been in motorcycle racing long enough to know that no challenge is unexpected. It's always expected, okay? I think that's why we love it, because we love the anxiety, and we love it when our anxiety pays off and we get a result. And it's really painful when we don't. And I think that's a bit of a psychological thing about people that work in racing and engineering and mechanics as well. You're always chasing speed, you're chasing the glory, and that is part of this job. It's an important part of this job, because you're not doing this to come second every week.
If I get the opportunity, this is where I want to be, at least for another couple of years. I think it'll bring me on a lot with the data and stuff. You don't really get data or anything at home, so to have that and to be able to compare to people that are a lot faster is probably one of the most beneficial things I've had since I've been riding. And there's still going to be girls coming that are fast, so yeah, I just want to be one of them.
I had a heavy imposter syndrome at the start of the season, but I felt even after the first day, at the first round, I was like, okay, that's okay, I got it, I got this. And even though I'm not pushing the front, I'm still having a great time doing what I'm doing, and I'm making progress. I'm still making progress.
And while Shambles isn't in the paddock this year, we are hopeful that other teams and organisations might follow our lead and offer comparable experiences to similar students of non-male genders. And who knows, maybe we'll even be back again in future seasons.
The question now is, how do we accelerate this progress? The answer is threefold: visibility, opportunity, and action. For visibility, we need to highlight role models, challenge outdated stereotypes, and show young girls that engineering and motorsports are for them. For opportunity, we need access to STEM education, scholarships, and practical experiences, which can be widened to break down barriers. When it comes to action, we have things from mentorship programs to corporate accountability, where companies and institutions must actively push for change. We're already seeing incredible initiatives from charities and organisations committed to making engineering more inclusive. The Women's Circuit Racing World Championship is playing a part too, giving aspiring engineers a tangible, high-profile platform to showcase their skills.
It's not just giving these interns a chance or an opportunity to kind of work in the paddock where there's just not enough women, even in the Women's World Championship. There's so few women involved. hopefully lots of other young girls watch this documentary and realise, because so many girls I see like in the paddock throughout all my years in bike racing want to be part of it and feel intimidated or feel like they're not allowed, or just the blatant misogyny that goes on around this place a lot of the time, feel really threatened by it. So hopefully they will watch it because they're already kind of in that nerdy sphere that we attract and are like, oh, you know what, maybe I can, it's not as closed off as it outwardly appears, I guess.
I think the advice that I was given and that I followed was to try as much as you can, as many different things as you can, and see what you truly like. Try to not be influenced by any outside parameters. Just try a lot of things and see what you like. And if you like it, it means you're gonna try more and be better at it, basically.
I love it. My interns have come to me and said, this is great, I want to work here. I'm like, yes, I love that. That makes me so happy. That they feel safe in this environment, which really is hard work.
You know, they're always so eager to learn, and like all of our interns have been amazing. Like they come in and they're just ready to work and do all the things that we ask them to do. And you know, it's not always glorious, but they get to see a different side of motorsports that maybe they wouldn't get to see otherwise.
I'm so frustrated!
It's just been really cool to be able to kind of like share, you know, they ask a lot of questions about, my job and, you know, I mean, as a racer, how did I get into it? Like they're so interested in what we're doing and you know, it's cool to have that energy around in the pits and be able to, like I said, share that knowledge with others. And yeah, it's been a really cool experience to be able to kind of share even just a little bit of what we do as, you know, in the racing industry.
So here we are at the end of the first ever Women's Circuit Racing World Championship. And if it's proven anything, it's that good racing is good racing, no matter who is under the visor. It's not just the stands that have been packed. The paddock for the Women's Circuit Racing World Championship has been filled with people of all ages scrambling to get autographs and photos with their new favourite heroes. While this is all great, unfortunately the data that we've seen and some of the prevailing attitudes in this championship have proven that we still have a long way to go to achieve equity and equality. But if the work of the championship, and in particular the Cosmic Shambles Network, the Sekhmet Racing Team, UCL and Digital Science is just the start, it's a really good start.
Yeah, I've been wondering lately if I've done anything right. 'Cause I've been struggling lately, I don't think I'll last the night. Ain't it funny when you wake up, your body wants to talk. She asked me if I'm listening. She asked me if I'm listening at all. She asked me if I'm listening. She asked me if I'm listening at all. Pin me up, spin me round. I've been living upside down in a hurricane, like a hurricane. Pin me up, spin me round. I've been living upside down in a hurricane, like a hurricane. She asked me if I'm listening. She asked me if I'm listening at all. She asked me if I'm listening. She asked me if I'm listening at all. Pin me up, spin me round. I've been living upside down in a hurricane, like a hurricane. Pin me up, spin me round. I've been living upside down in a hurricane.
If you enjoyed this film, please do like and subscribe to the Cosmic Shambles Network channel for more science content. And a special thanks to our Patreon supporters, without whom films like this and programmes like our UCL interns just wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support us and more projects like this, please head to patreon.com/Cosmic Shambles and sign up.